All right, we're going to go to Brisbane now and talk to Labor frontbencher Graham Perrett. Thanks very much for your company. I wanted to ask you about this story on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. It might not be your home paper, but I'm sure you have read it. Carbon zombies. The argument seems to be that some version of carbon pricing will be coming back under Labor. Now, I recognise that your side of politics have been out in force today saying that there's nothing really there but a beat up, but you'd have to be concerned about the leak, wouldn't you? I mean, the leak is really the story here, isn't it? Somebody has gone and told from the upper echelons of the opposition, Simon Benson, what's going on here.
Well, the person who leaked is obviously an idiot. I'd certainly like to get that on the record. And look, whilst I'm normally a big fan of getting zombies on the front page of any paper, it is clear that this is a part of the process. We've always been committed to putting a price on pollution. We understand that. The direct action plan that the opposition have, it's all carrot. It's not going to work. You do need some guides there to make people understand that pollution has consequences for the planet. But this leak is a problem, but hopefully they will see the error of their ways and we won't see any more of it.
But it's the second one. I mean, I had a leak given to me out of Shadow ERC, no less, about what was going on with divisions over pensions with the likes of Gary Gray, Tony Burke and Chris Bowen all disagreeing with the direction you ultimately went on pensions. This is two pretty serious leaks, not by accident, you would think.
Well, I can't comment on your sources. Obviously, if you'd like to name them, we can chat about the quality of the information you've been provided, Peter. I don't speak off the record. I know that the Labor Party is most effective when we're focused on achieving the best outcomes for the nation rather than internal squabbling. We've seen the problems that come for Australia when a government is focused on internal squabbles. We've got an agricultural minister not talking to the Prime Minister when cattle exports have been cut by 80%, so we could see the problems that go on when division occurs right in front of us, right in the government right now. I would hope we learnt from those problems we've had in the past and we'd go back to being one voice focused on the best interests of Australia.
You mentioned that at this stage, the particular leak that we're talking about, it's just a discussion paper, and obviously there's a whole series of steps before it becomes a policy to therefore take to an election.
Very much so.
But you weren't as forgiving as that. You were sitting there in the Parliament when you were really nailing the government to the wall over leaks out of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet that were only discussion papers as well, around changes to education, changes to health. You made that the entire raison d'etre of the opposition's attacks on the government in the final sitting week before the winter recess, yet here you are in the same situation saying, hey, don't worry about it, they're just a discussion paper.
Peter, let's remember the platform that those leaks were seen through. A budget in 2014 that delivered an $80 billion cut to states in terms of health and education. That's the platform that we're seeing things through. Not to mention the Commission of Audit, not to mention some of those other weird, wacky ideas that the members of the front bench in the government have aired and shared and voiced. So that's the context in which we're attacking the government. And obviously discussion papers in opposition are completely different to policies that are being rolled out that affect Australians right now.
But it's only a discussion paper, in fairness. The government's one was only a discussion paper at the departmental level. This isn't at a departmental level, this is at the political level, even though it's only a discussion paper.
Well, as I said, the problems that come with government are not the same as opposition. The government has been all over the shop when it comes to having one voice and one focus. It seems like Tony Abbott is a very, very effective opposition leader, but doesn't actually understand that a Prime Minister is supposed to bring the people forward in terms of a plan for the future, not take them backwards into some sort of weird view of what the past used to be. That's the difference between government leading and opposition's putting forward ideas. And but this leak is, I should go back to that initial point, completely disappointed to see this leak, and I'd hope that the person would see the error of their ways and understand that these leaks do not help any development of an appropriate response to dangerous climate change.
I suspect that's right, and I should note, for what it's worth, that I think both sides of politics are as bad as each other. Just as they were saying in that last week of Parliament, it's no big deal, it's just a discussion paper. They haven't been saying that today in the government in relation to this discussion paper by the opposition. So it's all swings and roundabouts on that front. Let me ask you, though, if I can, Graham Perrett, about something in your portfolio area. You're the Parliamentary Secretary to the Shadow AG. I'm interested what you think about Indigenous recognition with some of the stoush that might develop between the various sides here, including people that are on the same side in terms of wanting to see some change, based on the risk, as some people see it, of changing the Constitution around the legalities of doing so. Do you worry that those divisions might actually ruin something that seems to have such significant community support, according to the polls?
Look, I do agree with the Prime Minister on this, that this must be bipartisan. Let's make sure that the Parliament gets it, and then as broadly as possible, as Ken White's committee, as Senator Nova Peris's committee, go out and consult, that we have as much community support for this as possible. Because we do need to make sure that when the people of Australia vote, that we get as high a percentage as possible supporting any change to our Constitution. Obviously, there are sections in that Constitution right now that no sensible Australian would support. Yeah, the bits that allow a state to make a decision based on race for voting.
Help me out with this. I mean, you've got a law degree. How does stuff like that stay in the Constitution? I understand that it's not getting practiced, but I just don't understand how it hasn't been stripped out of the Constitution decades and decades before now.
Well, you'd need someone to drive the change. I was on a committee with Mark Dreyfus, the Shadow Attorney General, that looked at this, and we made recommendations about it. But in terms of the political agenda, I guess making space to do it. I mean, whilst it's archaic and has no modern day relevance, it takes time to trot a referendum out to the people, and there are other things that people might think is more important. A republic is something I'm particularly passionate about. But yeah, I think you could get a piece of information out to the Australian people where they understand, and let's try and get more than 91% vote supporting change. I'm still can't believe that 9% of Australians didn't want Indigenous Australians to have the right to vote back in when we had the change in 1967. I'd like to see a strong support for change, and that means we've got to get the model right, the implications right, and the education process right, so that all Australians own our Constitution. I think sadly most Australians know more about the American Constitution than they do about the Australian Constitution.
Yeah, I suspect that's right. Let me ask you one final one on the issue of gay marriage. Again, there's legalities in the mix here. Tim Wilson's put forward a proposal trying to ensure, I suppose, that religious institutions don't feel like they will be the next step in a sort of slippery slope, I suppose, towards it being more than just same-sex marriage being recognised, but rather an inhibiting of their rights to make decisions whichever way they choose as religious organisations. What do you think of that?
Well, going back to our Constitution, right now there is a protection there. There is protection of Section 116 from memory. So I'd have to look at what Tim's proposing, but there is no suggestion that the state, a secular state, recognising the committed monogamous relationship of people who happen to be of the same sex would have any implications for religious institutions. No suggestion whatsoever, and that's actually I would suggest a bit of a buying into a specious argument put forward from some religious organisations. The Constitution already protects those religious institutions, and I'm not sure what Tim's suggesting, but anything that puts people's minds at ease, because I know it's confronting. Faith provides particular challenges when people interpret their Quran or Bible or Talmud or whatever it is, and a change would have implications for them. But I think we could do it in a respectful way and ensure that we have more families created where the state recognises that love and that commitment, and surely that's a good thing. That's a building block that most people around the world recognise is good for society.
Well, I for one hope you're right on that. Graham Perrett, appreciate your insights. Thanks for joining us on Newsday. Cheers.